Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. Thank you so much for coming out to something I'm very excited to have back, our IBM Analytics community. So our hope with these events is to help inform you and update you on all the exciting things that IBM has been doing with our analytics products as we go through. Today, we've got an action-packed couple of hours for you. I apologize for the length of it, but there was just so much stuff that is new and exciting. We wanted to make sure that you had all of the information that we could possibly provide. And I've asked our presenters to talk very fast, so there's a lot going on. My name, just so you know, I'm going to switch to the introductions here. Maybe I'm not. There we go. I apologize, I'm having a bit of an internet lag today, but my name is Erica Dale. I'm technically a senior analytics advisor. I prefer evangelist because really I keep a soapbox under my desk and I like to pull it out and tell y'all what to do with your data because I get a little preachy about it. One of our presenters, our first presenter today is Brian Simpson, who is a vice president of performance and analytics, performance management and analytics at NewComp. He's going to be updating us on all the new and exciting things going on in Cognos Analytics. Jane Fung, really happy to have Jane on this. She's our Watson expert. So she's joining us to tell us what's new and exciting in Watson Discovery, I believe we're going to talk about today. And Jessie Snyder, she's a program director for IBM for Datastage. I know you thought Datastage was like old and stuff, but it's not. They've breathed life into it. And not that it ever went anywhere. It is still an enterprise grade solution, but it's new and exciting. And we want to show you this because a lot of people have a very, I would call it a bad misconception of what Datastage really is. So I'm excited to see Jessie's presentation. A little bit about how we're going to flow. Intro and overview, that's me. I'm your moderator for today. What's new in Cognos Analytics? That's with Brian. The award-winning Watson Discovery. This product, again, for me is something that really changes how people work and how people work with information. So I think you're going to like this. And then the next trend, Datastage. We've got live Q&A at the bottom, but you know me. I like to be interrupted. I like interrupting people, especially Brian. So please feel free to add your questions in the chat window or the Q&A window. It's my job to interrupt and help triage some of those questions, and I'm happy to do that for you. A little bit about NewComp. We're your hosts today. We have been born and raised in the data and analytics space. So company was formed in this incarnation in 1996, and all we do is data and analytics. We're very proud to be the top level of IBM partner specializing in analytics. It's something that we work hard to do, and it's only because of our close relationship with the vendor that we're able to do this together and successfully. So analytics to us means a lot of different things. It's not just about that pretty front end that Brian's going to tell you about. It's about that back end stuff, keeping the data clean, keeping it governed, keeping it secure. It's also about ease of finding it. That's what Jane's going to talk to you about. So there's a lot of components now in analytics, and it's our job to help you understand how those might fit with your organization. Our services, we really have 5 main pillars. So we've got the AI and machine learning, because no analytics firm would be complete without it. But we really can't do that without the data engineering. What happens, where the data comes from, what happens to it along the way, what should happen to it along the way, where are we storing it, how are we storing it? We want to make sure that we have assets that can be shared with different business users and different types of users, whether they're data scientists or executives that just want the easy button. BI and data visualization, that's how we grew up. That's what we specialize in. Please don't use pie charts all the time because we might have to have a very serious conversation. Financial planning and analytics. What is BI if we're not measuring against targets, budgets, forecasts, that type of thing? We've got to be able to do that what if scenario modeling. What if there's another pandemic? What if there's another wave of that? What is that going to do to our business, to our school, to our headcount planning? There's so many different scenarios. I can't imagine having gone through the past 2 years without a technology like that. And of course, being cloud enabled on all of this. It's our job to help you make that decision when it's time for you to move to the cloud. What cloud provider would you like to use? Why? What's going to be the best way forward? So we have cloud architects on staff ready to help you. So with that, I'm going to pass the baton over to the lovely and talented Brian.
And my camera.
Yeah, so Brian, just so I'm not distracting our viewers, I'm going to go off camera and let you be the star of the show as you usually are.
Sounds good.
But
Thank you,
please, I'm
Erica.
still here. Interrupt.
All right, thank you. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about what's new in Cognos Analytics with Watson. They've just released the new version 11.2.2, so we're going to cover all the new features in that. I'll also do a quick recap starting in 11.2.0. So the biggest change that was introduced in 11 in the 11.2 stream, 11.2.0, is the homepage and the content navigation experience. So lots of the views as you're navigating through the content have become full screen instead of that sort of pop-out view where the frames would sort of pop out on the left-hand side of the screen. They've also changed the home screen to use what they call the IBM Carbon Design System, which is consistent with other products. If you're a planning analytics user, you'll notice the home pages look very similar. You can actually see in the bottom right of this screen, the screenshot there, showing that carbon design system, that style that they're using on the homepage. And so planning analytics uses the same carbon design system. A lot of the Watson technologies use the same system. So the intent here is to sort of unify the user experience and make it comfortable and familiar across all the different products that are all sort of integrated. Now, speaking of the Watson products, 11.2 also introduced improved Watson Studio integration. And they've also incorporated the Watson Core natural language processing NLP within the AI assistant and improving upon those Watson moments as well. The biggest improvement from my point of view on this release is the faster loading of dashboards. So specifically dashboards authored in the dashboarding component of Cognos. The load times of those dashboards have been significantly improved. I've seen performance benchmarks that show up to a 2x performance improvement. So loading those dashboards twice as quickly. So that's really exciting as well. So again, this is a recap of 11.2.0. There's also, you'll notice the second bullet point on here, AI assistant and forecasting support for OLAP cubes. So that's specifically multidimensional cubes. That includes planning analytics. So that's pretty exciting as well if you're leveraging the integration between Cognos Analytics and planning analytics. And then they also added a couple of new visualizations here, the box plot and the radar. You can see those screenshots in the middle of the screen there. So continually adding new visualizations to the product. So that was 11.2. 11.2.1. This is when the product was rebranded as IBM Cognos Analytics with Watson. You'll notice that with Watson tagged on to planning analytics as well. So IBM Planning Analytics with Watson. That's really a rebranding, including that Watson, that very popular Watson name. They also did a pass on the licensing. They reduced the cloud licensing. There's now a single user license for as low as $10 US. They also introduced a new mobile only license for $5 US per year per user. So that's a new price point for Cognos Analytics. Similar to 11.2.0, they introduced new visualization. So at the top right of my screen, you can see the new donut chart. It's really a half donut in this case. So that's a new visualization. And then in the bottom right is the 3D maps and something they call hex bin grouping. So basically drawing these hexagonal bins on the map and then grouping them and showing kind of the elevation, showing the value. They've also added a couple of new data sources. So Dremio and IBM Cloud SQL Server or Cloud SQL Query as supported data sources. Couple of new performance improvements as well. So they're continually working on report performance and dashboard performance. Okay, so that's a recap of 11.2.0 and 11.2.1. Let's jump into Watson, Cognos Analytics with Watson 11.2.2, new features. I should mention as well, you can actually Google for this, like Cognos Analytics, what's new, and you will find detailed documentation from IBM that goes through all of the new features. It includes screenshots and videos where appropriate. So you can find all this information online. not just for this release, but for any previous release. So feel free to Google for that. The documentation is really good. All right, so first up, let's talk about dashboarding enhancements. So these focused on 4 key areas for improvement, really focused on usability and improving the authoring experience and the consumption experience for Cognos dashboards. So those 4 areas were general usability, selection and alignment, which we'll talk about in a moment, as well as colors and pins. So starting with general usability, there's a lot of detail here, but if you take a look in the top right screenshot there, they've added text styling and font sizes for axes. That's your horizontal and vertical axes, or your X, Y, the data values themselves, and the legends. So you now have customizability to change the font size and styling on all of those different components of the text. They've also added a widget property to round the edges of the widgets, just making it look a little bit cleaner on some dashboards. They've improved the opacity setting so that it only affects the background and not the text. So you can make the background more transparent without making the text transparent as well. And then in the multi-select, so this is in the bottom right and bottom left now, talking about selection, the ability to multi-select and do bulk changes on objects. So this includes bulk changes to text items. They've also added margins, alignment, indentation, and line height. So you can kind of see all those options in the screenshot. So that's all different options for multi-select and bulk editing those objects. They've also added the ability to vertically and horizontally align objects. That's what they're sort of demonstrating with those blue squares on my screen. This is very similar to the capabilities that you would find in PowerPoint, selecting multiple objects and vertically aligning them or horizontally aligning them. So hopefully this is something that you've used. I know this has been really, really important from the authoring experience to get things to make it look perfect, right? To have everything aligned with the grid that you can see in the background. So that's all very exciting. The other dashboarding enhancements are colors and pins. So starting with colors, they've added the ability to color the entire background based on, each individual tab can have a different background. You can see here the background is made green. So this is sort of a distinct background color for each tab, similar to what you can do with the actual tabs themselves, but now it's for the actual canvas. And this, you can use this in clever ways. You could have a dashboard like a stoplight dashboard with a green, a yellow, and a red canvas, sort of indicating the, the good, the not so good, and the really bad areas of your dashboard. So just more customizability on the colors. And then for pins, I'm not sure if you guys have used the pinning option. It's, the ability to basically bookmark a widget and reuse it. So they've added thumbnails for pinned images. So previously it wouldn't show a thumbnail. You can see here they've pinned this car picture, and on the pins on the left there, it's actually showing the thumbnail of the picture. And they've also added the ability to rename pins. So no longer are they just like a generated name. The highlighted pin with the car there has actually been renamed to car. So the ability to rename pins increases the usability of them, makes them a little bit easier to organize. All right, so that's sort of general dashboarding enhancements in 11.2.2. Let's take a look at some of the AI improvements. So Watson AI is being used to empower Cognos users to, to analyze their data, make smarter decisions, even users that have no technical or data science experience. And one of the most interesting new features here is this use of natural language generation. That's what NLG stands for. And this release focused on presenting the little tidbits of information, those insights that you see on the right-hand side. Those have been in the product for a while, but this release focused on rewording them, presenting them in plainer English, making them a little bit more readable. So to give you some examples of some of the changes that were made here, I've got 2 screenshots that compare them side by side. So IBM's continually making improvements to how this text is presented. This is a comparison between 11.2.1 and 11.2.2 on my screen. The idea is to clean up the text, make it simpler and easier to read. So for example, the rounding of numbers, you can see in the very top insight, on the left it says the sum of net profit for all values of year is 66,816. Instead, we're now rounding it. So over all years, the sum of net profit is almost 67,000. It's more sort of natural English, a little bit more like it flows a little bit better and a little bit easier to read. Another example is the second last bullet on both sides. It says on the left, it says the value of audience score percentage is unusually high when year is 2007. Kind of sounds like a robot speaking, and it doesn't really understand the two fields. So it's been reworded to say, it's actually the third last bullet on the right-hand side. Over all years, the average of audience score is 60.21. So instead of saying, in year, it's saying overall years. So it's a little bit more sort of plain English. Oh, sorry, and it's actually the bottom bullet there. I'm reading the wrong one. Audience score percentage is unusually high in 2007. So fewer words, more concise, more clear. Sounds like proper spoken English as opposed to something that was generated by a robot. So they're making improvements to the AI to make it sound more human, I guess. Some functional improvements to the AI assistant. It now understands operators and modifiers. It understood these a little bit before, but now you can kind of naturally apply them as filters. So the assistant understands things where you want to filter on a specific column. So for example, the example in this screenshot is show the top 3 products by sales. You could extend it to include some of these examples here, like show the top 3 products by sales, excluding Colombian coffee. Colombian's the biggest bar there. And so some of these modifiers or qualifiers can be used in natural language, and the AI assistant will understand those. So that's really powerful, and it should result in more plain English queries to the assistant, returning meaningful results. My favorite improvement on this one is these temporal expressions. This is more sort of natural language addition, so using common temporal expressions that we use in everyday conversation. So the assistant now understands expressions like last Christmas or next summer or every Monday in October or second quarter. So in this screenshot, you can see the example of asking, show the profit from last Christmas by product. So again, more continual improvements to the assistant, and there's more coming in the next release as well. So they're going to keep making improvements here. I think that one's really cool. Okay, so for the techies on the call, those that do data modeling, the vision here is to provide a pleasant data modeling and data preparation experience, both for self-service users and for the more sophisticated technical users who do like advanced data modeling. The capabilities are intended to like enable and attract users across the entire spectrum. So in the screenshot there, in the highlighted sort of green area in the metadata tree, you can now sort any of the objects. So you can sort based on column headers or tables. You can sort by name or by data type. So some folks out there, some of our customers have really large data modules, and the intent here is to make it easier to navigate them. So one of the general visions for the data modeling experience is this idea of how to get to the immediacy of insight. So we want to spend a lot less time doing data preparation and a lot more time doing data analysis and uncovering insights within the data. So all of these improvements to the data modeling experience are intended to help with that. This one here is all about speed. So this is allowing you to refresh metadata properties that are contained in the data module from the underlying data source. So for example, changing field data types, you used to have to go through and refresh them one at a time. You can now refresh them in bulk with the push of a button. So just refreshing all the properties in bulk. The idea again being, enabling you to do data modeling and adjust the changes more quickly and generally be more agile. Some very specific improvements here, but these ones were actual customer requests. So in response to customer feedback, let's say you have data that's updated nightly. or analysis that's done like as of yesterday or as of last week, what you can do now is use a dynamic as of date where the data is up to the time reference you need. So up to yesterday or up to last Sunday as examples in the screenshot here. This actually used to be an add-on that was available on the Accelerator catalog, but is now baked into the product. By the way, if you're not familiar with the Accelerator catalog, there's a whole bunch of add-ons, new features, best practice guides, new visualizations available for free on the Accelerator catalog. You can find that by just searching for the IBM Accelerator catalog. It's not specific to Cognos Analytics, but there is a ton of Cognos Analytics content on there. The next one up, the sort of continuing on with the data modeling enhancements. In Framework Manager, you can build shortcut tables and alias tables. They're adding this to data modules in 11.2.2. This is what IBM calls a preview feature, which means it's not enabled by default, but you can ask us how to get that enabled. So if this is important to you, by all means, ask us. We can show you how to enable that feature. They're doing this in a couple of cases just to sort of preview it or beta it for a couple of customers. But this, if it's something you've used in Framework Manager, is really important to have this in the data module component as well. So they're closing the gaps there. As with every release of Cognos, they are testing against new data sources and new data source vendors. This includes new fix packs or mod packs for those data sources. There's a link here, which I know is really hard to see because it's like dark blue, for what versions are tested. But we'll provide you with the slides so you can follow that link at your convenience. So all of these changes are also being backported into the long-term support release stream, which is 11.1.7. So they are aligning those, anything that's being picked up for 11.2.2 is being backported there. This includes updates to documentation as well. A couple of other things, and we'll sort of jump into this on the next slide. But the documentation also includes like new and changed features, deprecated or removed features, and this JWT support, which is JSON web tokens. So this is support for single sign-on for your data sources. So adding support for Azure SQL, Synapse, and a couple of others. So extending support for those JSON web tokens. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it, but it allows for single sign-on on your data sources. Okay, just a couple of more slides for what's new in Cognos. Reporting enhancements. This one it's kind of a funny problem. If you're using the reporting capabilities today, you might notice that there's different behavior depending on how you execute the report. So whether it's doing like run as from the portal, or clicking the report link in the portal, or running it in design mode in Report Studio, or running it in interactive mode in Report Studio, or running it in authoring mode, which is what the screenshot shows there. In general, the behavior was pretty consistent for HTML or PDF, but Excel and CSV had some different behavior. So what IBM did is go through all the different behaviors, figure out what is the best sort of expected behavior, and unify them together. So in particular, Excel and CSV used to close the viewer after the download. So it would prompt you to download, or it would automatically download a CSV or Excel file, and then it would close the viewer behind the scenes. They've determined that they don't want to close the viewer automatically anymore, because at the top you were able to continue to rerun the report or rerun the report with new prompts. So in 11.2.2, the viewer will stay open behind the download, allowing you to reprompt or run in a different format. That's instead of going back to the portal and having to rerun the report again. They're also changing how XML reports are run. Not a lot of customers use the XML format. Today, it basically displays the raw XML in the viewer, meaning you had to basically cut and paste it into an XML file. They've changed that, so it's a download. This is, again, another change based on customer feedback. So those customers out there that were using XML were constantly cutting and pasting it, so they fixed that so that it actually triggers a download now. Next up is data store improvements. So a couple enhancements about the data store. These bullet points, like all this is supported today. It's part of the report execution. But for JavaScript objects like the data table, which is like a JSON data store cached on the browser side, they're using a little bit of a different mechanism to store the data. So they've implemented some new query logic here, just handling of numeric data types for categories like product numbers, just treating them correctly so that you can sort and filter them, and handling null and empty strings. This is a very technical change, but fairly major if you are leveraging that component. My last slide for Cognos Analytics changes. So continually adding conformance updates. There's a list there of your new conformance support for new browsers, new operating systems. They're closely monitoring deprecation notices from third parties, like from Microsoft and other third parties. So, they're continually making sure that they're staying in support. My favorite here, really not my favorite, the Log4j vulnerability that we got for Christmas. If you're as an administrator of Cognos, you probably had to deal with this. For those that don't know, the Log4j vulnerability was a very, very widespread security vulnerability that was revealed in mid-December. It affects a lot of software worldwide. Log4j is a logging utility that's used by a lot of different software. Cognos plugged those gaps very quickly, so they released interim fixes. They've since started going back through all of the software, looking for any instances of Log4j version 1. So the software vulnerability affected Log4j version 2, and that's where the security, the severe security vulnerability was. But version 1 was called into question as a result of that as well. And so IBM went back through the product and completely removed all instances of Log4j version 1. So this actually turned out to be a really big deal. They had to basically rewrite the modules for audit and diagnostic logging to upgrade those to the latest release of Log4j. And for component logging, they actually just removed the dependency on Log4j entirely. There's no feature functionality change here. They are also backporting this fix to 11.1.7. That's the long-term support release. So that is included in interim fix 9, which was released on April 27th. That fixes all the Apache Log4j version 1 components. It upgrades them all to Log4j version 2.17.1, which is thankfully without vulnerabilities. There are also fix packs for PowerPlay and Transformer to upgrade or remove any remaining instances of Log4j version 1. Whew, that was a lot of Log4j stuff. Definitely not what we all wanted for Christmas, but it sounds like we're getting through that. A couple of other things, so extensions. I'd mentioned the accelerator catalog before. There's lots of customizable extensions available on the accelerator catalog. There was an issue where you would upgrade and it might cause problems with unsupported extensions. In the latest release, we can now detect any extensions that are installed, what their version is, and compare compatibility between versions. We will automatically disable extensions that might be incompatible and alert you if they're not compatible, so that you don't get any surprises as a result of your extensions, and then you can decide whether you need to upgrade them or remove them. So that's a fairly important feature if you're making extensive use of extensions. And last but not least, Event Studio. They're closing gaps for Event Studio for features that did exist in Cognos 10 that are being now reintroduced in Cognos 11. So there's a couple of features here as they close those gaps. So you can see a lot of dashboarding and reporting enhancements, a lot of exciting AI enhancements, and a lot of technical enhancements behind the scenes to boost Cognos up. So this is the 11.2.2 release. And if there's any questions, throw them in the chat. Erica, do you see any questions in there?
I don't. I think they're still shy. So, it's me. It's my job to ask you the questions that we haven't prepared for on the fly. And if you expected something different, we have to have some serious conversations. So I actually have an oddball question for you.
Sure.
So Cognos has been around a long time, right? But it's changed so much over the last few years. What's the coolest thing that you've seen a customer do? Not in demo, because we all know the demos are cool, right? But at a customer site, because you've seen a lot of customers lately.
Yeah.
What do you think is kind of neat? The sexy stuff, the IBMers on the line are going to have to kind of plug their ears, but the sexy stuff, we all know it shows really well, but what are people really doing that's interesting?
Sure. I mean, so the salesperson in me wants to talk about AI and explorations and finding insights in your data, but the veteran reporting guru that I am, honestly, the coolest things that I've seen done with Cognos are running like a departmental P&L for 50 different departments within an organization, and
Yeah,
emailing that P&L to 50 different budget managers on a weekly basis, like, so it's in their inbox on Monday morning, all highly formatted, pixel perfect, and up to date. I mean, that
yeah,
to me, that's the coolest thing that Cognos can do, is automate standard reports. So take a standard report like a P&L and blast it out to all my users and make it look really good and make it look slick and professional and guarantee the data is correct and write right
yeah,
on it, data fresh as of whatever date, and sending it by email so it lands in their inbox. Like, honestly, that's the coolest. It's reporting basics, but it's the coolest thing that I've seen done with customers. And honestly, it's what excites a lot of customers and a lot of their stakeholders out there, like CFOs and CEOs. That's what excites them,
absolutely.
is getting access to data and just having it in their inbox. All the new features are really cool as well. They demo really well. The the explorations, the AI assistant, the new mobile app, all that stuff is really, really slick, and customers are exploring that and taking advantage of that and really getting to understand it, uncovering insights in their data. But I still get excited by automated reporting. So
I'm
that's my
with you.
answer
I
for that.
mean, it's the same for me, and I am always astounded when I talked to a customer last week where it took them almost the full month to close the previous month, and I'm like, but it doesn't need to be like that, right? Like we have the technology, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I do actually have another question for you. Brian, you mentioned some custom background colors and tabs, like stoplight colors. Can those colors be set to change programmatically based on a variable, like a threshold?
I see that question. I actually don't know the answer to that. I haven't tested that. That would be really cool.
Yeah,
I can just picture like the whole dashboard turning red if things are bad.
that's what
I'm
I
gonna
need.
have to, yeah, I'm gonna have to test that out myself and see
Yeah,
if we can make that based on a variable. Oh,
excellent.
someone else is saying yes, it's possible.
Yeah,
So it sounds like someone's tested it before me. So
good to know.
thank
Thanks,
you,
Rob.
Rob, for confirming that. Um, so yeah, sounds like it's
And thanks,
possible.
Roxanne, for the great question. I appreciate it. Brian gets sick of my curveballs because usually there's something that we haven't prepared for at all. So this one was in line with that. Excellent. So
Um,
I don't see any other questions right now. Anything else you want to throw in before we hand the baton over?
I don't think so. I'll just say, if anyone out there does want help upgrading to the latest release of Cognos, please let us know. We've done it a million times, so we can help you get that done quickly.
So that's actually a great point too, Brian. One of the other things that I find is that so as data workers, we get so myopically focused on just getting stuff done that we don't stop and check out, where are the new cylinders under the hood? What else is going on? And so one of the things I'd like to offer to everyone on the line is, if you want to just see, like, literally see a demo of the new features, we know you already own Cognos. Don't worry about that. But sometimes it helps to inspire and get some creative juices going within your own teams to say, hey, that would be really good for my enrollment planning, or understanding certain thresholds, or my KPIs at my hospital, whatever your case may be. So we're happy to do that. It's my job to sort of take control of Brian's calendar. So, we're happy to do that whenever it's convenient for you. And I think with that, we're going to pass that over to Jane now, right, Alex? So, Jane, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. That was a great presentation. Thanks, Erica. Are you guys seeing my screen okay?
We are. You're just fine.
Excellent. Thank you. My name is Jane, okay, and I have about a couple years of experience in Watson, and I was actually a 20-year veteran from IBM. So today we're going to talk about Watson Discovery. Watson Discovery is a very, very excellent tool, and it is a top leader tool in the unstructured text analytic engine. So the agenda for today, we have about 30 minutes times, and we're going to cover a lot of grounds. We're going to talk about what is Watson Discovery. We will talk a little bit about Watson NLU, Natural Language Understanding, because it is actually used by Watson Discovery as well. And how are we going to use Watson Discovery in your business? And also, if we have time, we will follow by a demo. So hopefully we'll have time to do all this stuff within the half an hour. First of all, Watson Discovery. Watson Discovery, if you think about it, it actually have few purposes, which is on the right side. What it can do is it can allow us to retrieve relevant data for your application. We can do searches on data source that we connect to. Also, we can have things such as content miner to get insight from a whole bunch of unstructured data. Okay, so I'll talk more about that. And lastly, we can also query it using natural language to ask a question to Discovery and come back with the answer. So the three main things that Watson Discovery do is to do search on unstructured text. Okay, so if we have a lot of unstructured text, even text inside images, we will be able to search them. We can discover insight using the content miner. We can do question and answer as well. So how does it get there are these steps. So it has capability to connect to different repository, different backend. I will show you, what kind of repository and backend you can connect to. It can ingest these kind of information, such as the unstructured text, paragraphs, PDFs, PowerPoint, things inside your images, the text inside your images. We can ingest them and understand what they are about. And during this process, we have a choice or a lot of techniques or built-in tools that comes from Discovery that allow us to teach Discovery how to read this data. By default, Discovery already know how to read a lot of the stuff, right? Because it has the natural language understanding built in. It can already read the keywords. It can understand the intent. It can understand the entities, etc. However, if there are further things that we want to teach Discovery on how to interpret the data, we have all the tools for it, and I'll cover them, in the next few slides. And when we are teaching Discovery to understand our domain or using a custom natural language understanding to enhance the data, this capability, we call it an enrichment. So we are enriching the data in a way to facilitate our searches, to facilitate our content mining, to facilitate the question and answer. Okay, so the enrichment is part of the step while Discovery is trying to understand the data. The enrichment is a step which help Discovery to further understand the data more in a way to support how we are going to search it, to support how we are going to do the question and answer, etc. Okay, so this process, you can think of it more like a batch process. The connection will be done at the beginning. The ingestion will be done as a process, and the enrichment will also be done as a process. So it will be front loading most of the process at the beginning, so that when we're doing the searching, it'll be very fast because we already front load all of the stuff. Okay, there's no need to do a lot of the indexing or whatever while we are doing the searching. It's already front loaded, so that's why it's extremely fast when we do the search. If you have any question, feel free to ask it in the Q&A text box. In Watson Discovery, there are several projects that we can create. One of the projects is called document retrieval. So for example, if we have, say, a whole bunch of PDFs, like the contracts, or if we have a whole bunch of PDFs like maybe insurance company pamphlet, brochure, or invoices, or your knowledge base, anything. Okay, so if you have a whole bunch of document, that could be coming from your SharePoint, it could be coming from just upload a file, PowerPoint, Word document, etc. We can upload it or ingest it by Watson Discovery, and we call that a document retrieval process. And after this, then Watson Discovery will be able to search it. The next one, the next project is called Conversational Search. If you happen to be using yet another most popular product, which is called Watson Assistant, it is a conversational AI platform, meaning that you can create a cognitive chatbot that can actually do transaction. Okay, you can do actual banking, you can actually do backend submission of ticket, etc. So if you happen to be using the IBM Watson Assistant, you can use it with Watson Discovery to do a search for it during the conversation. So for example, when people are chatting with the Watson Assistant chats, Watson Assistant will be covering the majority of the question and answer and doing the transaction as well. There might be one or two answers that Watson Assistant was not designed to cover because you did not put it in, and it is a one-off question. To help the customer all the time, we can do a search to discovery so that we can search your database or you search your knowledge base to find out the answer to the questions that the customer is asking. So we will never leave the customer hanging. Okay, we will always give them an answer. The last one is called a content mining project. Content miner is a very, very cool, project. So I will show you an example of how some people will be using it. But the nutshell is that we can import a whole bunch of unrelated data into Content Miner, and Content Miner will automatically bubble up all these, keywords, relationships, things that are, entities, names, things that people talk about the most, things that are mentioned the most, and you can start to visualize a relationship between all these keywords together and picture what is going on in the mass of the data that you have. Okay, I'll give you an example when we get there. And feel free to ask any question in the chat, and I'm sure Erica will bring it up when we get to the Q&A session. Or
So
Erica,
actually,
feel free
Jane,
to bring it up.
yeah, oh yeah, I'm going to interrupt you too. Nobody's immune. You know me better than that. So there is one question, Jane, and I, from a licensing point of view, I do know the answer, but I'd like to understand more from a, if it would even make sense if they integrated that kind of thing, like from an overall architecture. The question was, is Watson Discovery part of our Cognos license or a separate product? So I know it's a separate product, but is there ever an instance where a company might use both together, or is it really two distinct entities?
Which one? The Cognos
Cognos Analytics and Watson Discovery.
I might have to leave that question for Brian to answer.
Right. I wasn't sure, and I thought, well, maybe I'd leave it to the end, but you know what? It's more free flow if we actually don't know the answer and we have to get back to them, or Brian might have the answer. I'll find out while you're working through your presentation. But I just thought it was a very interesting question. So yes, from a licensing point of view, it's a different product. It's oftentimes very different use case as well. And Jane's going to show you some of that. But it got me thinking as to whether or not you've ever seen that. So. If anybody'd seen it, it would be you. So I'll ask Brian as well.
Sounds good. Thank you. So from Watson Discovery, we can connect to different type of data sources. This view is the Watson Discovery Plus plan. And if you have other plan, like the higher plan, the enterprise plan, then we actually have more data source to connect that you can connect to. So for example, if you want to ingest information from your Salesforce, your SharePoint Online, your SharePoint On-Prem, or Box.com, a web crawl, which is crawling your website. So that is very common. Cloud object storage or uploading data. So what this is, if you recall, Watson Discovery is able to connect to your data sources, ingest the data, index it using all the enrichment tools that we have to enable search capability on the data and to understand insights on the data. So this part is talk about the connecting to whatever your backend is. Okay, so the popular one is obviously web crawl, SharePoint, uploading data. Those are Salesforce are extremely common examples that people like to connect to. For example, if we have a whole bunch of websites that you want to crawl on, okay, as in you want to be able to search on, then the step to do it is very simple. It's like a 1, 2, 3 kind of step thing. You click on the web crawl, enter the URL that you want to crawl, and let it sit a bit, right? You can identify how many level of crawl that you wanted to crawl, like 1 level, 2 level clicks, 3 level clicks, and Discovery will crawl the website for you. After the website is crawled, automatically Discovery will have an index and search will be enabled by that time. And then after that, then you can start with your natural language searches. There might be some customization that we want to do depending on what you want to do. Same thing for SharePoint and uploading data and all the other connectivities. And I do see a question, so we might handle that later on. And from a file types support perspective, we support a good number of file types. And for the Discovery, we have OCR built in. So meaning that if, let's say, a PDF file is actually not a digital file, right? Sometimes a PDF is actually a scanned version, which is non-digital, then OCR will comes in very handy because we can read the whole file. And because we have OCR, so we can also read GIF files. So if you have text inside GIF, if you have images that has text inside a GIF file, we can read those as well because of the OCR capability. Furthermore, we also have a capability which is called Smart Document Understanding, so that it, like sometimes when we have, say, brochure, right? You have brochure on like 20,000 products, and the brochure format is typically the same. Right? The template is similar, right? You always have the same title page, you always have the same header, you have the same middle section, you have the same footer, you have the same picture. I mean, you have different picture in the same spot, or you have different paragraph in the same spot. However, the contents might be different. And if you upload, say, 20 of these, brochure into Watson Discovery, and all these files are more or less, the same format, then we can use, Smart Document Understanding to teach Discovery on how to read this file, okay? Because font size matter, right? When a font size is bigger, it means more importance. When a title is bigger, it means more important. So we can teach Discovery on this kind of stuff, okay? The formatting of the document indicate different importance of the document or the text inside the document. Watson Discovery has a long list of built-in tools and techniques that we can use to help better our searches. So some of the tools I'll cover in the next page, but I'll give you an example what I mean by that. I talk about the formatted paragraph, like Smart Document Understanding allow us to teach Watson Discovery how to read the paragraph visually, okay? Meaning that, font size 24 is title, font size 12 or this kind of color is subtitle. Okay, so we can actually teach Discovery to read a PDF document visually or PowerPoint document visually. And another things that we can teach Discovery, these are just examples, okay? So all of these tools would enhance Discovery understanding on how to better do the searches. So another example is we could teach Discovery patterns, okay? Such as we want to recognize pattern like increase by 3.5%. Decreased by 2.4%. This is up by 10%. This is down by 5%. So these sentences, when we are teaching Discovery, we actually teach it by example, okay? We don't have to, one of the tools that we have is we can teach it by example. So we highlight example of these are the sentences that we want to recognize, and it is something like this, right? This is up by 10, down by 10, increased by 3, decreased by 3. Okay, and the intent of it is being recognized by Watson Discovery. We can also search for negative feedbacks, like for example, the sentiment, right? How happy someone is, how unhappy someone is. If we happen to be passing anything like, feedbacks from customer, survey or etc. We can also find legal's paragraph that indicates indemnity. We can also classify certain things or certain sentences to be a category. Okay, so we can do classification. So Watson Discovery has a lot of features in it in it to help us better the search. So I'll try to go through some example of them so that you have a more idea. Okay, the end goal is all these tools is to enhance the search. Okay, so all the tools that we have in Watson Discovery, we call them enrichment. Some of the tools are built out of the box. So for example, we can understand the part of speech. Okay, what is part of speech? Like adverb, like that the stuff that my kids are learning in English. Adverbs, noun, pronoun, pro-adverb. All those stuff are considered part of speech. Table understanding is if you have, say, a PDF file or a PowerPoint or Word document that has a table in it. If we pass the table to just a regular program, it is hard for the program to understand what's going on, right? Because program don't read table. But Watson Discovery can read table, even when table has no lines, right? Sometimes like we have a PDF file that has a table that has multi-span column or multi-row, and then they might have 2 headers, 2 column, or they sometimes have lines, sometimes have no line. Watson Discovery has a specific training that was already done by the IBM research team that can understand table, so that you can understand how to read table on any particular document to help your searching. We also have the capability to understand contract. We have the capability to understand the sentiment of the document, like how happy, unhappy something is. We can digest keywords and entities. We can extract the keywords and entities from particular document. Other things that you can do on top of these out of the box. So the out of the box enrichment is something that you just select. You don't have to further train it. However, if you want to further train it, we actually have classifier, patterns, entity extractor, dictionaries, machine learning model that you can further train the enrichment. If you want to go one higher level, we can even train it using another product, which is called Watson Knowledge Studio. You can define the type system, which is how you identify different entities. Entities are like like business name, country name. All the names are considered entities. You can define dictionaries, rule-based model, machine learning model, pre-annotation of machine learning model, etc. Okay, there's no way that I can explain every single one, but the key is we have a lot of tools to teach discovery on your own domain such that it can enhance the search. And the tools are, some of them is completely out of the box. Some of them you can customize it a little bit so that it can fit your need. Some of them you have the flexibility to customize a lot if you have a more sophisticated scenario. The out-of-the-box enhancement looks like this, the enrichment. Okay, so we basically just selected yes or no to enable it or not. And this is an example of how we can train a pattern. Okay, so for example, if from a bunch of documents, we want to recognize certain patterns such as 3.3% above, down by 13.2%, etc. Then this is a one way to train it. Okay, we basically highlight the example, and after we highlight 10 or 15 example, then Watson Discovery will suddenly realize how it is trained. Then Watson Discovery will know how to identify similar things that is suitable by the pattern that you wanted to identify. Okay, I'm going to take like 2 minutes to cover natural language understanding because it is used by Watson Discovery as well. So what Watson natural language understanding is, by itself, it is a separate service on the IBM cloud, which you can use as well. The gist of it is if you pass it any unstructured text or paragraph, it will automatically identify several things, such as it will pick out the entities, such as all these names here, right? Organizations, that city name, even like MasterCard name, or even a mutual fund name or a group name, they will identify automatically as entity. Keywords will be identified, and it will identify sentiment as well. Okay, so if you pass a feedback from survey to this NLU, it will automatically identify how happy this feedback is, how unhappy this feedback is, etc. We can also do classification. So for example, if you receive a lot of unstructured text and you want to classify them, there is a classifier inside NLU, which can also be used by the Watson Discovery. Okay, so we can have classification. The main difference between Watson Discovery and Watson NLU is that Watson Discovery can ingest a mass amount of documents and data. Watson NLU is more a point in time thing. You can only pass it one paragraph. Okay, so it depends on your use case. You might choose to use Discovery because you are doing searches, or if you just want to extract classification or extract entities or extract keyword or sentiment in a smaller paragraph, then you might use NLU. Okay, Watson NLU. And for example, like this is the sentiment that I talk about, which applies to both the Discovery and NLU. Okay, so if you have a paragraph that you want to understand how what is the happiness or frustration, or if the person is happy, frustrated, impolite, polite, etc., then you can use NLU. If you have documents that you want to pass into Discovery, then Discovery will also give you similar results. And last thing about NLU, which is very, very interesting, is we have a feature which is called summarization. What is summarization? So for example, if you pass a website to Watson NLU, it can actually give you a summary of the source content. Okay, so it will summarize the several sentences to tell you the gist of the whole article of things. Okay, one key thing about the summarization is it will not rewrite. It will just summarize by picking the important lines from the article to represent the article. Okay, but this one is actually a I don't know if you guys heard of Project Debater. So Watson was debating with the top debater, and the Project Debater is a IBM research project which they have invented a lot of technologies. And one of the technologies that comes out from it is called the summarization. Another one that comes out from it is called finding answers, which I'll talk about in the next couple of slides.
So there is one question from a client here, Jane. Is it still just one paragraph for summarization?
To summarize, like as in the result?
Yeah.
So the input can be, say, an article, right? If you pass a website, whatever. The summarization is actually how much you define. So in my example, I told Watson NLU to give me 3 sentences as the summary. You could ask Watson NLU to give you 10 sentences, 15 sentences. So you actually, when you're requesting it, you define how large your summary is. Okay, so you can specify a number of lines for the summary to be off. Okay, so it doesn't have to be one paragraph. It can be 20 lines, 30 lines, whatever you like to ask NLU to do.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much.
So the next session we're going to cover is how do we use Watson Discovery and NLU? Okay, because these are still kind of sitting in the back end, and from the front, then what do we actually use them for? So I'll go through a few examples of how we use Discovery, how we use NLU. So for example, for Discovery, one of the very key use case is to do a natural language search. A lot of the clients, you might have a lot of resources in your backend that sits in SharePoint, that might sit in some PDF files, and you might want to enable those information to be searchable. So Watson Discovery can connect to your data source to allow searching on the information. Not just that we can search by natural language, we actually are able to do more advanced searches if you want to, okay? And we can identify answers as well. So this is another feature that was coming out. So the find answer is another feature that is from the IBM research project, the Project Debater, and it is done by the IBM research, and that feature got work into the product, which is Watson Discovery. So the find answer the key idea about it is usually when you do a search, a lot of the time, the search engine return a paragraph that, and you're supposed to kind of, read yourself, right? But define answer will attempt to find the answer that fits your question. Okay, so we will try to give you not the passage to read or the paragraph to read, but to give you the actual answer that shows you the answer. So if you are asking really pointed question, like, for example, what time is the store open, right? Instead of giving you the paragraph that says the store is open Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., and then you're supposed to go find and read yourself, we are going to tell you 8 a.m. Okay, so this is the power of how Watson Discovery is to actually find you the actual answer of what you ask. Okay, to understand the question and to understand, the search, the text that we're searching on. For example, you can use it for internal searches, okay, such as going to the SharePoint, which is common, or you can put it into your external website, right, for client to use to search on the knowledge base that you're surfacing for your client, or to search on the website that we can do a web crawl on, okay? Or maybe you have a whole bunch of FAQs that are on the website, then we can do a web crawl on that. And the FAQ, we actually have a mode, which is called FAQ mode, which I will talk about in the next slide, so that you can enable the FAQ to be easily searched as well and automatically refreshed too. So this is more information that we can provide. So on top of the search, not only that we can tell you the result, we can also tell you the keywords, the entities, the sentiment, different things that we can extract from the document. So depending on your use case, you might want to automatically extract keywords or category while you're doing searching. But it is very flexible. And we can also train Discovery too. So as we are doing search, the user can say, yep, this is good. And when we say, yep, this is good, it actually sends back a training to Discovery to say, yeah, so we are searching, good, and giving Discovery even more confidence. We can return, different things such as the keywords, entities, sentiments, which I already talked about. So that was a search use case. Another use case is if you happen to want to have a chatbot. We don't call it chatbot, we like to call it conversational AI, because chatbot is kind of like, you ask them a question and then give you a dumb answer. But conversational AI is actually going to the back end to do a transaction, to actually do things like real things, right? For example, if I'm logged into a banking website, I can actually do a e-transfer with the conversational AI, not just ask a question to get an answer. So if you happen to be using Watson Assistant, or if you have not, you should highly consider using Watson Assistant for your website or internal website, is that when we are servicing our customer, we will help them with a certain number of use cases within our assistant. And there might be just one or two of questions that we would not cover inside assistant. So to help the customer, we can connect our assistant with Watson Discovery in the conversational mode. What this means is, for example, if Discovery is connected to a FAQ that you have, great, maybe you have a live FAQ somewhere that the customer service team are updating, right? Maybe they update it in a Word document that is tucked into a SharePoint, and they have this FAQ that is live, okay? They have something, they go put in there, or maybe it's a support team that is updating. So if you have such a document that you want to be used with the conversational AI chatbot, then you can hook up Watson Assistant with Discovery, which look at your FAQ as a source and return answer to the user through the chatbot. Okay, so if the customer asks a question that is really long tail question, something that you didn't cover inside the existing Watson Assistant, no worries. The question can be passed to Discovery, which will look at your FAQ or whatever data sources that you have. Doesn't have to be FAQ, and then come back with an answer. And it will also inherit the capability to give you the answer. So if the customer asks a very pinpoint question, we will return the answer, as in the find answer capability. Or if the customer asks a question that is covered by the FAQ, we will return the whole paragraph of the FAQ answer so that it will be very nicely done, just like your FAQ. Okay, and we will also highlight the answer as well, right? The actual answers that fits the question. So this is the another use case. The next use case that I want to briefly talk about is the content mining. So this is a content miner, and it is in the enterprise and premium version of Watson Discovery. So I'll tell you a story of how you can use content miner. So there was a manufacturer, a car manufacturer back then. They have data when the dealership are fixing the car, right? So all the people who are on the dealership, like the technician, they have to enter reports after they finish the car. So because the manufacturer is a global manufacturer, so they have dealership worldwide, everywhere. So, and there was a time they were using this tool. They didn't know that they had issues, right? Because nobody told them that they have any issues, so they thought that everything was fine. So they loaded all of the dealership reports to the tool, normally, and they started, browsing around, clicking around, and they noticed that there was a few times, in the time slide that there are more reports of certain things. So they click into it, explore into it, and then they start to see keywords showing up. So all these keywords are automatic, okay? There's nothing you need to do. You don't have to pre-train Content Miner to understand certain keywords. Content Miner will automatically pick out all the keywords for you. So they started to notice keyword that talks about bumpy road. Okay, so they see keywords about bumpy road, uneven road, road with potholes. They see those kind of words, and they were all kind of grouped together. And then when they dig deeper and click on it and say, well, potholes and whatever, then they start to see people keep saying that they turn left or right, and then they see brakes not working. And so after they see all this correlation and all these keyword popping up and making all this correlation inside the tools, then they realized that there was a problem. What happened is when they read the description of the details, they realized that every time someone is turning, who happened to be passing through a pothole or some uneven road, the brakes stop working. And because of the tools, they were able to issue a recall on those cars that has that problem, because they would have never knew, because all the reports are spread out across the whole globe, and there's only one report here in Canada, one report in this dealership in US, one report in whatever. But then when you look at it worldwide, then it becomes a problem. So this is how Content Miner can be used. It's automatically helped you find insight from a whole bunch of unstructured data. The last page that I have, and I'll quickly jump to the demo just to quickly show you, is contract understanding. So if you happen to have contracts that you want to understand and identify parts quickly, Watson Discovery already have a training that is done, which is called contract understanding. We already understand contract structure for you. So if you want to understand which part of the contract talks about obligation, indemnification, the rights, disclaimer, definition, you can quickly browse through the contract using the filters on the left-hand side so that we can automatically identify the session for you. Because sometimes people might mention obligation in a certain paragraph that is not named obligation. So they are hidden in like 400 or 500 pages of contract, and you want to identify all the obligations that your party has. And it will tell you, the obligations and which party is supposed to have the obligation, etc. Okay, so okay, and one last slide. Okay, is that another way to use Discovery or NLU, natural language understanding, is you could have a customer experience dashboard. So for example, if you happen to hook up to say feedbacks from your clients, like email feedbacks or live chat, right? The chat log between your client and customer, or the chat log between your chatbot and the customer, or even transcript from your voice. Okay, so any feedbacks that are done by the customer, we can have a dashboard that connects to it to analyze it. So this is done using NLU, okay, because it's more real time. We can analyze the sentiment value of it. We can analyze, how happy the customer are, how unhappy the customer are. We can automatically pick out the keywords. Like, for example, what kind of things people are talking about. You would want to know, right? When you have a call center, when you have a live chatbot, when you have a human chat with the customer, you do want to know what kind of things people talk about, right? So we can pick out the entities, we can pick out the keyword, etc. Okay, so I have 4 minutes. I'll quickly, is there any other questions?
Nope, I don't see anything else in the chat rather. I think the demo will actually answer some of the questions that have come in. I've done my best to answer them on my own, but I think that the demo will this is a product like Watson Assistant that I find is better shown versus talked about. You know what I mean?
Yes. So today we are talking about the discovery. So we are going to see the discovery front end. So this is actually a UI in the front that we hook it up with discovery. So we are searching on discovery. So let's pretend that if you have a internal search or external search, and for this one we hook it up with a few union PDF document. And what you can see here is I put in a search. What is statutory holiday do I have? And this is the search answer. Okay, so it pick out the answer. If we select the about, then we can actually see more things inside it, right? Such as what kind of entities, keywords that are automatically picked about. So Discovery also uses natural language, so it automatically select the keywords for us and the entities. We can use this guide to up train, down train, right? Oh yeah, this is good. This is exactly what we are looking for. So for example, another sentence that we can ask is, what is the percentage of the pay, for the long-term disability? And you notice that the answer is 50%. Okay, and then we can read how it comes up with 50%, but you can see that the find answer actually just give you the answer, not just a paragraph to read. Okay, and then on the right hand side, we can do whatever we want, right? We can do a banner of different advertisement, or you can do a preview of what the answer is. It's up to you. Okay, so this is a search on discovery. And I also quickly loaded the other demo, which is the customer experience dashboard. So for this one, what we did is we actually have it hooked up with the chatbot. Okay, so we are reading the chat result from the chatbot. And as we're reading it, we are analyzing how happy the customer are. Like for example, in here, they're all neutral in this case, and we have some unhappiness in here, right? Some mostly neutral most of the time. So we are analyzing the customer response to see how happy and unhappy they are, put it together in a chart. We also analyze the keywords to see what kind of information people are talking about. There are filtering, to see different sessions, etc. Okay, so we can filter out to see what kind of things that people talk about in a certain time frame, or how many unhappy customer are there, etc. Okay, so I have finished this very, very quickly. And if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer it at the end of the call or now.
Looks pretty thorough to me, Jane. I'm gonna ask you the same question I asked Brian, though, one of those curveball ones, and that is, what is your favorite use case for Watson Discovery? What is the thing that you find provides clients with the most value, or is the coolest thing? Like, not just sexy demo stuff, but I'm talking about real life, feet on the street, no BS. What is really resonating?
So for Watson Discovery, I think one of the most common and the best use case is actually enabling search very quickly for your organization. Okay, you can use Discovery to enable search for inside, for outside, for external customer, for internal employees, etc. And the content miner is something that not everybody knows about. But I found that if you have a lot of data that you want to get insight of, you have to try content miner. It's such a good tool that if you are just browsing through it and you will be like, oh my God, I discovered all this stuff that I never knew before. But I can tell you content miner is not something that you might heard of a lot, okay? But I highly recommend it, give it a try, okay? Just like the example I gave you is a real example, right? It was a true, real example, and the manufacturer actually recalled the car right away. And they were even just testing content miner. They haven't even purchased it yet at that time. They were just
no,
testing
exactly.
it.
And I mean, I remember we did a POC for somebody who was, they just wanted to enable their, similar to the car, but it was, they wanted to enable their service technicians by putting all of the manuals for their products within Discovery so that they could just say, where do I find the grease zerks on and insert product here? And it would know what a grease zerk was, what the product was, and even be able to bring up a tagged photograph to show, because there's nothing better than a picture, right? To show how we would, where they would be able to find that just to do general maintenance. And the future phase of that is to actually open it up to end users, because this particular type of product, the end user does a lot of their own maintenance, right? So it's all about, I think about, you're going to laugh, but I think about it like Google on our internal knowledge base, right? Because that's the way my 5-year-old brain figures it out. So that's, to me, it was it really would have saved them a lot of time and effort when you think about, shop hours and that kind of thing. So
yep, definitely.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Jane. I really appreciate that. And with that, maybe we can make, I think, Alex, you have to do it, or maybe I have to do it. We can make Jessica the presenter. Perfect. And you're up, Jessica.
All right. Can you guys hear me okay?
We sure can. Thank you.
All right. I was going to try to share my webcam, but I think it's, let's see if this turns on here. There we go.
Oh, look at that.
All right, guys. So thanks so much for having me today. I am Jessie Snyder. I'm the program director for the product management team in IBM's Data and AI, and I cover the information server and Datastage portfolio. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the latest and greatest that we've been working on with Datastage over the last couple of years. I don't know if everyone on the line is familiar with Datastage, but I figured I would dive in and show you guys what we're working on and do a little bit of a demo. So can you hear me okay and see my screen okay?
Yeah, it's loud and clear.
Perfect. All right, let's get into it. So we have, one thing that I wanted to kind of talk about with what we've been working on with Datastage, and just to give a little bit of background if you're not familiar, so Datastage is an industry-leading ETL tool. We have been a market leader for over 20 years. And what we've done over the last kind of 2 years or so is take Datastage and modernize it for the 21st century. So we've actually been working since 2019 to compose Datastage into a cloud-native microservices-based ETL tool that runs on our Cloud Pak for Data platform. So we built in a lot of productivity enhancements. We spent a lot of time making things very user-friendly, modernizing the UI. If you've seen Datastage before, you're probably familiar with the thick client that we used to ship with the product. So now it's a totally brand new, modern web-based UI. Spent a lot of time with our IBM design team, making sure that we're kind of fitting into that design pattern that you're seeing across the board. So we saw a lot of the great updates from Cognos and Watson Discovery earlier, and you'll see how the UI with Datastage kind of fits into a lot of those design paradigms. If you're not familiar with the Datastage tool, so we are a no-code, low-code ETL tool. So what that means is you don't have to write a bunch of SQL code or Python to be able to transform data. Everything is done with a drag and drop user interface with pre-built transformations to make working with your data very easy and very consumable for a data engineer. And I'll talk a little bit about how we enable kind of self-service data integration and how we have that kind of interoperability across the platform with other different tools that we offer on the Cloud Pak for Data platform. We support a number of different integration styles. So whether you're looking at doing things like in bulk or batch styles, if you need to make updates overnight, or if you need to do like real-time or streaming integration, data virtualization, replication, those are all integration styles that we support, and we have interoperability with different integration tools on the platform. We have a lot of flexibility in the way that we kind of deploy Datastage and how we offer it. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a couple of slides. And then last but not least, so we have one of the things that has made us be a market leading ETL tool for the last 20 years is our parallel engine. So our tool is absolutely top of the market in terms of performance. So we can run things in massively parallel processing mode. So we can run things, 248 n ways parallel, so we can really scale out to fit enterprise workloads. So I mentioned how we've had that innovation and leadership over the past 20 years. If you're familiar with the information server portfolio or the Datastage portfolio, information server 11.5, information server 11.7 might be familiar to you. That's one of the products that a large number of our customers still use today. But over the last couple of years, like I mentioned, we've been working on porting our product to the Cloud Pak for Data platform. And at the end of last year, we finally released what we're calling our next generation Datastage product on Cloud Pak for Data. So that started with the Cloud Pak for Data 4.0.2 release back in October. So if you attend any of our additional webinars or any of our community events, this is the product you'll see us talking about. We also released it as a fully managed SaaS service back in June of last year. So that's a free service on IBM Cloud. We have a paid version of it, of course, if you get into higher levels of consumption, but we actually have a free way for everyone to try it out, and I'll be walking you through how to actually do that as part of the talk today. So wanted to cover a couple of pieces about, how we've modernized next-gen Datastage. You can see on the right there the old UI that we used to have, and then on the bottom right is the modernized version of Datastage. So one really important thing that we wanted to make sure that we did was for our existing Datastage customers, we wanted to make sure that we actually were able to easily bring those existing Datastage jobs into our next generation Datastage platform. So you'll find that we have a nice migration tool that's available where we can easily just import ISX files into next generation Datastage, and they'll automatically move all of your jobs and job assets over to that next gen platform. So there shouldn't be really any retraining or net new learning that needs to happen. A lot of our field members who've had a lot of experience with Datastage in the past, when we were first rolling out the next gen platform, we did quite a long open beta, about 6 months long, back at the end of 2020 and early 2021. We had a lot of our kind of power users tell us that it really only took them, maybe 30 minutes to kind of work their way with the new platform and figure out all of the kind of new feature and function. So it should be pretty easy and feel familiar to those who have used Datastage in the past. Like I mentioned, we support a number of those different integration styles, and it's really easy to combine with other integration styles on the Cloud Pak for Data platform. So for example, if you're leveraging data virtualization and you've created a virtualized data source, you can easily bring that into a Datastage flow and leverage that as one of your sources when you're building out your data pipeline. I mentioned the scalability, the elasticity with Datastage, the ability for us to have that design once, run anywhere design paradigm. That gives us the ability to kind of flexibly scale Datastage on either on as a software service on Cloud Pak for Data that's running on-prem, or maybe you're running it in a cloud-based environment. But this also allows us to have that scalability and flexibility in a SaaS environment, so that fully managed version of Datastage on IBM Cloud. Last but not least, like I mentioned, it's fully integrated with our Cloud Pak for Data platform. So I'm going to walk you through how this works as part of a live demonstration. But we do leverage the same kind of design language that all of the other tools also leverage, that Carbon design system. So you'll see a lot of kind of repeating paradigms across the Cloud Pak for Data platform. And there is a platform orchestration tool that we have called Watson Pipelines that allows you to actually orchestrate data pipelines you create with Datastage and connect that downstream to perhaps a Jupyter notebook with Watson Studio, where you might be building a machine learning model. I'll show you how that works as well in the demo. And then we also have extensive APIs that we have surfaced. So we have a whole bunch of open APIs and an SDK. If you do want to build pipelines programmatically or invoke them programmatically, we have the capability to do that. Really wanting to give our data engineers some flexibility to build pipelines in whatever way works for them. So I wanted to highlight a couple of the changes that we've made to the interface, and you can see on the right-hand side there a bit of a preview of that new UI. So we have things like automatic column propagation, where you can actually drag and drop a stage onto the interface. And if you're dropping it in the middle of a flow, we'll automatically propagate the columns through those stages. There's no manual mapping that's needed when you're setting up your pipelines and trying to map from your source to target values. We have an interactive log panel, so this helps make debugging very easy. You can kind of click into the log panel, click on dynamic links that'll take you to where an error might be happening within the flow itself. And we also link out to the Knowledge Center from there, so you can really easily debug any problems that are happening with the flow design. We have a really neat way to preview data now. I'll show that as part of the demo, where you can actually create visualizations with the data, so you can kind of get a better understanding of how the data is structured in a particular source, and that makes creating the pipeline that much easier. If you're not familiar with Datastage, we have a number of different out-of-the-box connectors that you can either natively connect to data sources, especially cloud-based data sources. We have a lot of support for that on the Cloud Pak for Data platform. And then we also have the ability to extend connectivity with an ODBC and JDBC stage, so that you can effectively connect to anything if there isn't a native connector available. If a source connection offers a JDBC or ODBC driver, can bring that into the Cloud Pak for Data platform and easily connect to that source. Best thing about this is it really only takes a couple minutes to get up and running with a data pipeline. I know when I first came on to our team a couple of years ago, I was really struggling with the thick client to get, even like a CSV into the platform and start using it. With the next gen product, it just takes a couple of clicks to bring something in, and you can easily get started building a pipeline. And I'll show you how easy that is as part of the demo. Couple of major features that I wanted to highlight. So I mentioned the preview data capabilities. You can see that they're kind of in that middle column where you can preview data in a tabular format or create a visualization with it. I mentioned the ability to actually import those existing jobs very easily. That's with our ISX import tool. So really easy to bring existing Datastage assets in. And just a lot of different kind of developer productivity enhancements that we've made over the last couple of years. We still have a very open community of Datastage power users. So we have a Slack channel that we use to get real-time feedback from a lot of our Datastage users across the world, and make sure that we're paying attention to those pieces that are going to enable them to really enjoy the experience of creating data pipelines in Datastage. So we have a very active Datastage community that we'd love for you to be a part of as well. We're constantly taking feedback, constantly building out new and exciting capability in the product. So lots of work that we've done, but also lots still to do. And we're really excited about the journey that we've been on and where Datastage is going. One thing that I wanted to cover in terms of deployment models, I get this question all the time. So first of all, if you're not familiar with the Cloud Pak for Data platform, it's a little bit of a misnomer. Cloud Pak for Data doesn't mean you can only deploy it on cloud. We absolutely can run this thing on-prem. For Datastage, we offer two options on-prem. We can run as an appliance with Cloud Pak for Data system, but then one of our most popular options is to deploy as software on-prem. So the same model that a lot of our customers have had for a long time, especially those who are in like the financial services industry or the healthcare industry, where you're working with highly regulated data, and perhaps you're looking at having a hybrid cloud type of deployment where you need to be able to mix deployment models. So maybe keep some mission critical workloads on-prem, but then maybe you're exploring running new workloads in a cloud-based environment. We can support that hybrid cloud deployment with the Cloud Pak for Data software. So we can run that on-prem. We can run in an IaaS model. So that would be like a bring your own license model to a cloud vendor like IBM Cloud or AWS or Azure, Google Cloud Platform. So in that model, you're actually deploying the Cloud Pak for Data software and Red Hat OpenShift on that IaaS provider, and then managing that whole stack yourself. We also have a managed OpenShift option of this one. So effectively, same model I just described, except the OpenShift layer is managed for you by the vendor. So we support ROCs on IBM Cloud. I actually need to update this chart because we also support AWS as ROSA. That's AWS's flavor of managed OpenShift, and Azure on Arrow, which is their flavor of managed OpenShift. So last but not least, we have our fully managed SaaS platform. So this is the one that we just rolled out last year on IBM Cloud, and it is a fully managed SaaS offering. It's different than some of the hosted offerings we've had in the past. So if you've been a Datastage user in the past, you might know that we used to offer kind of a containerized version of Datastage that we also hosted on IBM Cloud for some customers. This is very different. This is an enterprise grade production SaaS system that's fully managed by us. And we also have what we call a remote runtime capability that supports separating the design time of Datastage from the runtime execution layer. So we can actually push the runtime of Datastage jobs to remote locations like AWS. So we can co-locate the runtime of a Datastage job with where a workload is sitting. And I'll talk a little bit about that on the next slide. So this is that remote runtime capability that I was just mentioning. And you know, the thing I wanted to highlight about our fully managed SaaS service is that there's no setup here. So there's no install or configuration needed. You don't need to manage any upgrades. There's no there's administration in terms of adding users to the platform and configuring, when jobs are scheduled and, what you might want to configure in terms of the runtime part. But there was no actually standing up of a sandbox and getting stuff running. In terms of actually trying the product out, this SaaS service is available 24/7. So you can access it at any time. You can, if you have a small project that you want to work on where you need an ETL tool, that's a great use case for the SaaS product. So in terms of that remote runtime execution model I was talking about, this is something, it's actually pretty, in my opinion, pretty innovative and one of the coolest pieces of technology I've seen in a long time. So effectively, we've always had the ability to separate the design time of Datastage, which is effectively what you see on the glass, like when you're building the pipeline itself. So we can separate that from the runtime of Datastage, which is how the job is actually executed, how it's actually moving data from one place to another. And we've always had this availability. So, in the past, we've had a lot of customers use like Citrix to have their data engineering teams have access to the thick client, but then like the actual execution piece was sitting somewhere else. So we've expanded this paradigm to a cloud native world where we actually want to be able to execute runtimes on remote locations like other clouds. So we support AWS today. So what that means is you can go into our fully managed SaaS offering today. You can provision the service You can design your job, and then when you're ready to actually execute that job, you can choose to execute it in AWS, which is, we have 2 fully managed locations in AWS right now. But what that allows you to do is, if you have like a data center sitting in AWS, if you have like an S3 bucket sitting there, often a lot of cloud vendors will charge you egress costs to move that data out if you're going to be processing it elsewhere. So what this allows us to do is co-locate that runtime with the workload execution, and we can actually execute the job and co-locate it with wherever your workload is sitting in AWS. Later this year, we plan to roll this out to other cloud locations. So that would mean having other IBM managed cloud locations available. We also plan on bringing the capability to execute in customer managed locations. So this one's going to be pretty cool. That one is probably happening closer to the end of the year, or potentially into early 2023, where we actually allow the ability to execute in either a customer managed location on another cloud or enable an on-premises location. So this would really be leveraging that kind of true hybrid cloud deployment model, where maybe you have, you're building all of your jobs in IBM Cloud, but then you still have a data center sitting on-prem, and we can have a very slimmed down control plane that's running next to or co-locating with that data center on-prem, actually executing your ETL jobs. So this one's really cool. We're really excited about this technology. We're going to continue to invest quite heavily here as the year progresses and into next year. We'll also be looking at bringing the Datastage as a service offering to AWS and Azure natively. So being able to transact out of the AWS and Azure marketplaces into 2023. So that's going to be a very cool experience for us. All right, before I flip to the demo, just wanted to show this slide, and I think we'll send out slides afterwards, but we have a couple of links here if you want to get started with actually using the next gen product. Our team has spent a lot of time building out a lot of content and a lot of tutorials and blog posts that kind of highlight the new capability and teach you how to use Datastage if you've never used it before. So I'll include this when we send out the material after the session today, but I just wanted to highlight that we have a lot of content here, and we're really excited for everyone to try it out. Definitely leave us feedback. We have our whole community that we'd love for you to join. So I would love to hear any feedback that anyone has on the next gen product. So now let me get to the fun part, which is the actual demo. So I'll see, hopefully when I shared my screen, I think I shared my whole screen. So let's see, can you guys see my screen here? It's my browser window.
Yep, you're doing well.
All right, so this is how you get to the new trial. Now, we've been talking a lot about data fabric inside of data and AI. I was going to show you a slide, but I was thinking I might run out of time, so I took it out. But you'll start to hear us talk more and more about a data fabric from the IBM perspective. And effectively, the way we're positioning the data fabric is that we have 4 different entry points, one for customer 360, one for multi-cloud data integration, one for governance and privacy, and another for machine learning ops and trustworthy AI. And the whole point here is really just to kind of have different groupings of our product capability that make sense for different use cases you might be trying to work on, and just consolidating the services that we're offering to kind of help solve whatever those problems are. But these entry points are meant to be composable, so we can kind of combine them. But this is the kind of basis of the new trial experience that we've created. And you'll actually see not just a trial for Datastage here, but if we look at some of the other entry points, you'll see trials for the rest of those entry points that I mentioned as well. So really encourage you to take some time to check it out, because this spans all of the services on the Cloud Pak for Data platform. So if you come to this, this is one of our new marketing kind of home pages. You can learn more about the data fabric here and how multi-cloud data integration fits in and how Datastage specifically fits in. But the important button here is the try it for free button. So if you click on this button, it'll take you to our provisioning service homepage. You select a region that you want to deploy in. I'm going to select Dallas. you'll see all of the services that are going to be deployed as part of this trial. So this one is going to provision Datastage and Watson Knowledge Catalog, but you can see the other services that we have available here. Some were already talked about on the call today. So we have the embedded Cognos dashboard, the machine learning models, Watson OpenScale, Watson Studio, Watson Query. You can, of course, provision any other service on the Cloud Pak for Data platform. I believe all services have a free version, so would highly encourage you to try it out if you didn't know this existed. So you just have to accept the terms and conditions here. Now, I'm going to log in with my IBM ID. You might have to create a IBM Cloud account if you don't have one already. So you can see it is going to provision all my services, and then it's going to land me into the Cloud Pak for Data platform. So this is the Cloud Pak for Data homepage. You can see I have a bunch of projects here that I've been working on. I can see the catalogs that I have, notifications that alert me to activity happening on any of my projects. And this is all meant to be collaborative, so I can share these with other people on the Cloud Pak for Data platform. The piece that I wanted to highlight here, though, is this Take a Tutorial button. So this is going to hop me into what we call the gallery. This is where I can select any number of tutorials. There's actually quite a bit more tutorials that are available here. I would just have to change the filtering in the catalog. But the one that I want to try is the multi-cloud data integration trial. So this is going to just show me a little bit about the project itself. It's going to tell me what assets are going to be provisioned. It will also hop me into a tutorial once I actually provision the project. So this is really easy to get started with. All I'm going to do is hit Create Project. It's going to pre-fill this information for me. Now, I've created this trial a couple of times before, so let me just give this one a new name. And if only I could spell. So I am going to go ahead and click Create here, and this is going to create a project for me. Now this takes about a minute or two to actually provision. What this trial is doing is actually creating a new sample Datastage flow. It's creating a bunch of connections for me to be able to use in my flow, and it's creating kind of all the content that surrounds the trial itself. So it does take about a minute or two to actually provision and hop me over to that trial experience. But I promise you it's well worth the wait here, and highly encourage you to try this out yourself. So we'll see once it provisions and it takes me over there. If it's your first time through, it's going to present you with kind of a walk me experience. So that will actually either let you walk through the tutorial or it will just let you dive right into the project if you don't want to actually go through that whole walk me experience. So we give you the flexibility to kind of choose your own adventure here in terms of the services that you're using and the capability that you're exploring. I actually already provisioned this project just in case this was taking a little bit of time. So maybe we can just, for the sake of time, I'll hop into my pre-provisioned one. So everything in Cloud Pak for Data is kind of driven by this projects view. There's a lot of capability around like the catalog and governance capability, but when you're actually working with a lot of assets like in Datastage or in Watson Studio, for example, you'll want to come to the projects view where you can see all of the different projects that you have created. So this is the multi-cloud data integration project that I created a little while ago. So from that provisioning, oh, it looks like it created. So we can go hop to it now. So it's going to take me into that projects view. It's going to show me an overview of the actual project itself. It's going to show me the assets that it's created. So in this case, it is a Datastage flow and 3 different connections. So let's go ahead and take a look at that Datastage flow. So I just click on that. It's going to open me up into the flow itself. Now, because I've done this a million times, it's not showing me the walk me. But when you first do land here, it actually will present a walk me experience. And one other thing I wanted to call out here is that if you don't see the walk me experience, there is a tutorial that is available. So if you click into the README here, you'll actually want to click over to this integrate data tutorial. This will take you into our documentation where it will run you through the tutorial itself and it will teach you how to get up and running. It'll actually take you through a bunch of different steps, so how to modify this flow, and there's a bunch of videos here, so really encourage you to check that out. I just want to highlight a couple of pieces of capability here. So number one, this is the new platform we have. Let me just dismiss this notification here. So this is the new canvas that we have, and oops, sorry. So we can see all the different stages. You'll see all of the connectors that we have out of the box here. There's quite a few of them. You can see all the different stages. We have the ability to quickly filter stages using this text box, so you can just very easily drag and drop stages onto the canvas itself. To open up a stage, you just double click, and then you can jump right into the properties where we can look at the input and output columns. You can see that column propagation I was talking about. I just drag that stage right into the flow here, and I can see all of these columns already mapped for the link that I had set up. There is no work for me to do to actually get that up and running. I wanted to show also that preview data capability that I was talking about. So the very easy way to actually see data and visualize it. Now, this is a pretty big database. Okay, I brought it back pretty quickly. So we can see here just the data in a tabular form, so I can really easily see the data that I'm working with. But the cool part is I can actually hop into this visualization capability. If you've seen the data refinery tool that we offer on the Cloud Pak for Data platform, very similar to the visualization that we offer there. So I can really quickly, like if I wanted to, let's take a look at one of the columns here. Maybe I want to see filter by this residence type. So maybe I'll create a bar graph and I'll say residence type. And I can see really quickly this bar graph of how this data is distributed. I can very easily change this. So if I wanted to maybe change it into a tree map type of view, you can very easily kind of change and work with the data this way. We also have the ability to profile data. This one takes a little bit longer, but I can very easily see here some profiling for the different data. So again, picking some of those data columns and seeing a distribution of that data really makes it easy to see what kind of data I'm working with and give me a little more insight into how I'm building my flow. Last thing I wanted to mention here, I mentioned that pipeline orchestration capability. So the way that you get there is if I hop back into the projects view, I'm going to create a new asset and just click on this new asset button, and then I will type in pipeline. It's only I can spell. So click on this pipeline builder, and I'll just call this a test pipeline. So this is going to hop me into the Watson pipeline capability, which is our orchestration layer in the Cloud Pak for Data platform. So this is actually going to allow me to bring in and orchestrate a bunch of different capability across the Cloud Pak for Data platform. So you can see I have a bunch of different widgets I can drag out here. I can create an auto AI experiment. I can create a data asset. So this is about invoking these pieces programmatically and orchestrating them together. I can have this kind of timing type of capability, so waiting for any of these results. I can kind of control how these things happen. I can run different pieces of capability. So like if I wanted to run a Datastage flow and then I wanted to run an auto AI experiment, I can very easily kind of stitch these together and orchestrate these across the platform. I have one that's pre-built that I just wanted to show you because it's so cool, like how complex you can actually make these. But I had this flow I had set up for a different demo where I'm actually waiting for running a bash script and creating an auto AI experiment. Then I run another Datastage flow, wait for all those results to finish. Then I run another flow on AWS, and then I run a Watson Studio notebook. and then run another auto AI experiment. And when that finishes, I send an email notification. So you can get pretty complicated and complex here with the orchestration capability, but I just wanted to highlight how easy it is to kind of use the different tools across the Cloud Pak for Data platform and really bring everything together and have that kind of interoperability between the tools. And that was really our vision by modernizing Datastage, is really bringing it into that 21st century and allowing for that interoperability across our hybrid cloud platform here. I know I was talking very fast. I think I probably hit my time limit here. I know there was some time carved out at the end for Q&A, but I am happy to take any questions. I don't know if anything came through in the chat while I was talking, but happy to address those now.
That was a lot of information, Jessie. Thank you so much. I was really excited to see your presentation because there's so much improvement to, especially the usability of the tool over the past few years. You know, I was glad to hear you say, you know, and admit it's not like it used to be. It's not like 1990s TomTom is sort of how I phrase it. So please forgive me. I know you can't say that, but having that visual impact applied to the tool makes looking at the data and the quality and the flow so much more like it resonates more, I find, with some of the developers, right? And they can almost sort of visualize how an end user might even look at it, if you will.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you the same question that we didn't prepare for, and that is, what is the, I'm not going to say coolest thing because there's a lot of cool things that you just showed, but what is the single biggest, most impactful feature of Datastage that you're seeing today that customers are really, that it's got stickiness, you know, with customers, right?
Yeah.
So I'm looking for keeping it real. Give me the pre-sales guy thing.
Great question.
Okay.
No, so, you know, I think with Datastage, we see a wide variety of what customers use with it because it's such a flexible tool, because every enterprise needs an ETL tool to move some sort of workload around, whether it's just movement from transactional system to some data warehouse to do downstream processing, whether it's getting that into a data lake, whether it is migrating, like we see a lot of customers that shift workloads, like they're on a cloud journey, you know, their CIO has told them, hey, we got to move everything to AWS in 2 years, like, let's get it there. You know, an ETL tool like Datastage can help facilitate that. I think the coolest thing that I see is really when we have enterprises that use it to start being a data-driven organization. So, you know, really start being able to get insight from their data. One of my favorite stories is one of our customers was trying to do something with Google Analytics. They had an on-premises transactional system, and they were trying to extract data from that and actually get that, like, move that in a streaming fashion into Google Analytics and perform real-time analytics on their data. And we were able to help them get their data up to Google Analytics. And we were processing like 100 million transactions every hour. So, you know, when we talk about that performance engine that Datastage sits on, I mean, we're talking about serious enterprise data movement.
Yeah.
And that's really where Datastage shines. I mean, you can see it's easy for me to get started and use it for a small project. That was really our goal with the modernization, is making it accessible to everyone. But the coolest part for me is seeing those, you know, kind of enterprise-wide transformation journeys and actually having an enterprise be able to use it to be a data-driven organization.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a great point, because a lot of, let's call them C-levels, we don't want to pick on any one particular executive, right? But a lot of them are hearing and reading about AI and machine learning, and, oh, we should be doing this. And they're going to, you know, IT or their business or their finance or, you know, institutional research in schools and saying, we should be doing this. And, you know, that in their head, they're going, we can't close the books fast enough, right? Like, we got to walk before we can run. And to me, things like Datastage is part of the house, the foundation the house is built on, right? We cannot do any of the things that we've talked about today or the next steps without good, solid, transparent, auditable, and governed ETL, in my opinion, because I warned you all about my soapbox, right? So you know, to me, we almost should have done this first because this is the foundation the house is built on, but it's Brian's stuff that's kind of the sexy stuff that sells all the rest of this, right?
Yep.
So what do you do? Yeah, so I'm really impressed. I was, like I said, really looking forward to this presentation. It's been a long time since I've seen Datastage, and a lot of people, there's a lot of bells and whistles under the hood that people don't know about. Things like data virtualization, right? They think they need another product for that. It's like, no, we can do it. We can still do it, right? And the thing that I like the most about dealing with IBM, I mean, a lot of the people on the line know that we're a multi-vendor partner, but the thing I like about dealing with IBM is that any one of these tools that we've talked about today can work in the client's environment, regardless of whether they're Azure standard or AWS standard or GCP standard. Doesn't matter. We don't care. Data is data, right? So if you need one or all of these pieces, fantastic, right? I mean, yeah, blue on blue always, it works better faster, but it will still work anywhere else. Like just because we have those integration points in house, right? So,
Exactly.
so I think you illustrated that really well.
Those, like, you know, those tightly integrated but loosely coupled services. So we can work with other tools. We can have that portability between different clouds, like reducing that vendor lock-in. That's really been our vision for the last couple of years. So yeah, you absolutely hit it on the head.
Yeah, yeah, and that's something that I've always enjoyed about working with IBM as a vendor in particular, right? So, so it makes me happy to see that we're not just continuing down that path, but kind of doubling down on it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Jesse, so much. Like I say, this is very enjoyable, very informative. We're pretty much at time now, so if there's any further questions, please feel free to send them along to us. We'll get follow-up emails from us to say, hey, thanks for coming out. Here's the slides. And you know, if you have other questions, want to go deeper on any of these topics, all of these experts are available to you and more. We can use our bat phone at any time, and we're happy to do that. So I hope you all have an enjoyable rest of your day. It's my birthday, so I am definitely going to enjoy the rest of my day. And yeah, and thank you everyone for your time and attention. This is a lot of information and a lot of time, but long overdue. So with that, have a great day, everyone.